Hello, I'm the Eternal Newbie. The extra L is for liberate, as when the DM decides to liberate your character from you and rewrite everything about them, you're gonna have a bad time. Today's tale is about a DM who does just that, because they don't seem to be able to think outside the box. Or inside the box for that matter. So, when a player does something they don't expect, they have no answer other than to negate the player's entire backstory and force them into a role they don't want. Before we begin, I'd like to say that all people involved are my dear friends and do not wish for any hate towards the people involved. Well, here it goes. The campaign was a 3-shot by a good friend of mine, and besides me, a life domain cleric female elf, there are 3 more of my friends whose classes and races are irrelevant to the story. In the first session, we arrived on an island and quickly figured out we were in a dread domain of some sort that was ruled over by an evil king that once conquered the land for reasons yet unknown to us. Shortly after our arrival, we were ambushed by a group of wraiths, and me being a cleric surrounded by undead creatures, I went with a good old combo of Spirit Guardians plus turn undead on later turns. My moment of glory did not last long, however, because on second round, I was an unfortunate victim of a, later admitted not so random, crit for far too much damage for me to be able to pass my concentration saving throw. The fight went on. I healed myself up from critical health and did the only logical thing. Cast turn undead. To my surprise, the majority of the mobs failed their saves and were thus forced to run away from me. This, however, created a problem as the DM had cooked up a story where this was not supposed to happen. The Wraiths, that at this point were very far away, were quickly replaced by another pack of Wraiths that in just one turn were all instantly killed by a shaman NPC appearing out of nowhere and thus saving us. Ugh. I hate DMPCs with the passion of 10,000 burning suns. Maybe there are good ones out there, but much like Bigfoot or the country of Australia, I don't think they exist. Having your DMPC save the party is not only just lazy, but completely unfair to the players. Look, being a DM is hard. I've done it, and as any good DM will tell you, players are not going to do what you expect most of the time. Now, not seeing a cleric cast turn undead in this situation shows a stunning lack of vision, but sometimes you just get so honed in on your story, you can't see the forest for the trees. Pro tip from somebody who is not a pro DM. It's not your story you're telling. It's everyone at the table's story. If you have any other good DM advice, drop a comment below. I would love to hear it. The adventure went on. We arrived in a village. We're given several quests in order to find out more about the Dread Lord King and a way into his castle where we had to defeat him in order to escape the Dread Domain. Next encounter had us fighting a boss whose abilities were heavily based around charming the player, and so I did the only logical thing. Cast Calm Emotions on all of us, granting us immunity to the status effect. However, this was not supposed to happen. The DM, now at a loss on how to make the boss challenging, got mad at me for ruining his fight a second time. The next session, I was feeling a little guilty, and so I stuck to only healing spells and damaging cantrips. The DM would also tell me to save my spells for Remove Curse, as the spell was apparently needed for the next part of the story. The fights that session were brutal, especially one fight against the King's son in an arena where essentially every attack would block healing effects on the victim until the next turn, and also this time not a single turn undead would go through. The fight ended with all of us alive, in no small part thanks to the DM's heavy and openly fudging rolls. The campaign went on with several more fights, and at this point, I was promoted to the party's heal bot. Yay. We fought some baddies, did some puzzles, where I dared to cast Divination, which resulted in the spell being banned. Anyway, back to being a heal bot. And we also had to make friends with a tribe of friendly ghouls, because that was how the story was supposed to go. Never mind me being a cleric of Kelemvor, because I was very clearly told that I had to leave the ghouls alive for this story. I kept my frustrations mostly to myself, only asking the DM for no more anti-heal mechanics, since that was kind of all I had left at this point. But I was growing bored and sick of what my character had become. Hey now, ghouls are people too, especially if you believe that whole you are what you eat thing. Personally, I like the idea of friendly ghouls. A ghoul would make the perfect wingman. Think about it. No matter how ugly you are, you're freaking Brad Pitt compared to a ghoul. You clean up at last call. I'm not a fan of taking away player agency though. It sounds like this DM thinks DM stands for Director of Movies, because that's how they are acting. Like the players are set pieces to be moved around and placed how they wish. Not a good attitude for a DM. And so eventually, we storm the king's castle, fighting side by side with our ghoul allies and finally meeting the king. We were then told that the king conquered the island for a magical water stream that would save his dying wife. The description of the long-dead queen was strangely familiar to how I described my own character, however, and thus my backstory was out the window. The king proclaimed me a reincarnation of his dead wife, and I got a quick confirmation of this from Kelimvor, because I was trying to convince the king that I, in fact, was not, and that would go against the story. The king, angered that I would kill our son in the arena, still begged me to join him yet again in this life. However, me being so frustrated, I simply browsed my phone for what was the majority of the fight, hoping that my character would die here, since for me the idea of my character was already gone. However, the DM got upset at me a couple of times for not paying attention to the events of the story specifically crafted for my character's development. In the end, I grew disgusted with my character and felt like I was simply DM's NPC to cast spells only when he needed me and to serve as an important part of DM's big reveal about the king's backstory. I never got to feel like a hero in the whole campaign, and between being reduced to party's healbot and the unwanted attention to my backstory, all this simply killed the idea of my character. Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here and say the DM probably thought this would be a cool moment for OP. The story ends with them being a queen. A queen who murdered her own son, but hey, still a queen. Here's the thing though, if you're going to make decisions that will completely change a character and negate every bit of their backstory, you might want to run it by the player. But enough from me. What do you think? I'd love to hear your opinions and comment and or like for them. If you really like this content, please subscribe. I'm going to put out a video or two each week. Promise. If you have a piece of homebrew you'd like to see me talk about or a story you'd like to see me present, please let me know that too. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, play your character. Don't let your character play you.